Hello friends, good morning and welcome to the EduSat Network. As you all know, we are at CEC celebrating the Digital India Week, and as part of its activities, we are continuously within our lectures announcing what our ongoing activities are. There is online content available on various undergraduate subjects. There is e-content, e-courses, and along with that, these lectures of ours which are telecasted live on the EduSat network and also subsequently uploaded on YouTube. So there's lots of material available for use for you. And friends, moving on to our subject of the lecture, we are today going to talk about the classics of American literature with the specific focus on drama. And this is going to be a continuation from our previous lecture, wherein we have already talked about drama in one of the lectures, and we are going to continue from that, talking about more contemporary American playwrights. And friends, for this lecture we have this in our studio, Dr. Bhim Singh Dhaiya, retired professor of English, Kurukshetra University, and former vice chancellor, Kurukshetra University. With this brief introduction, I welcome sir to the studio. Sir, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. Well, before we launch upon today's lecture on American drama, classics of American drama to be more precise, just recalling what we have already covered. We have covered almost half of the journey through American drama, beginning with the Tylers, the Contrast, which was a patriotic play, contrasting the ruling British and the newly independent America, the rural and the urban, or the sophisticated and the natural, that contrast. And we ended with Eugene O'Neill's The Hairy Ape. So we begin at the end of the 18th century, soon after independence, because that play was 1787, 11 years after independence. And Eugene O'Neill's play is the beginning of the 20th century, 1920s to be more precise. And 20s was the period of modernism, and known for its experimentalism. So all round experiments in language, in literature, in theater also. So here was an experiment on the stage. Eugene O'Neill practiced symbolism, expressionism to be more precise. So expressionism being a reaction against realism, it presented scenes, characters through symbols. So that is where we left last time. Now, carrying the story further, we have to begin with the 1940s. In fact, we had also covered one more, The Skin of Our Teeth.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
We did. That already brings us to the 40s, because that's early 40s, 1943 or so. By Thornton Wilder, The Skin of Our Teeth, showing how humanity has the instinct for survival, and so strong that even if the conditions are worst for living, for life, humanity can survive by the skin of its teeth, which is the most delicate part of our body. So that is where we left last time, and today we begin the story with Arthur Miller, 1940s, late 40s, because this play came up in 1949, Death of a Salesman. He wrote a lot of plays, but then this one is considered a classic of its time. Now, mid-20th century is a period where you start looking back and taking stock of where are we going? Where is the American society going? What are we doing? And Arthur Miller had his Marxist background in the 1930s, right from his school and then theater days. He was influenced by the Marxist ideas. And partly, even in Death of a Salesman, you have that sort of analysis, social, political analysis of America. But then by the time he reaches mid-40s, Marxism is not very strong in his outlook. And he has turned to the more socio-psychological analysis of the American society. And the focus is on the social issues, but through the individual life. So Death of a Salesman has the hero called Willie Loman. So the name is significant in more than one way. One significance is the name itself, Willie, not William. Loman, low man,
Yes.
small man. So this is the working class man belonging to the lower strata of life. That's why low men. And that's how they address each other, Willie, not really William. William will be formal, middle class or upper class. But here it is lower class, and they will speak in that dialect, say Willie. So Willie Loman is representative of the working class American population of the time. Now, Willie Loman is a salesman and doing a small job selling things, but at the end of the day, he reviews his life and comes to the conclusion that after all, he has been selling himself. And exhausting his life in these petty transactions. And at the end of the day, there is nothing to fall back upon. So life exhausted, life transacted in petty, say, dealings, give and take, selling, buying. This is what the play is about. So he is analyzing the life of American society through an individual life and shows how the business dominance in American society is making the whole business of life a business of buying and selling. Is life all about this? That is the question Arthur Miller is raising and making the Americans think there are better things in life which you are missing. And this is a sure path to hell where you are going. So there is a need to look back and withdraw from this suicidal path and try to look for better ways of living. That's the message of Death of a Salesman. Very popular play. People were crazy watching it, and those who could think at a deeper level, they were anguished, because after all it's a tragedy. It's not a comedy, it's a tragedy. At the same time, simultaneously, in the same period of 1940s, there were writers in the theatre who were writing comedies. And we have, along with Arthur Miller, Tennessee Williams. Tennessee Williams wrote a lot of plays. The one I want to talk about is A Streetcar Named Desire. He had several more, including The American Dream, including Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. Very popular plays he wrote. Arthur Miller was not as popular because he was writing more serious plays, tragic plays. Williams was giving more popular stuff, comedy. But at the same time, comedy with a serious, sting in it. If we look at this play, which I have chosen, A Streetcar Named Desire, here we have a girl who is the central character, Blanche Dubois, BlancheDubois. So here is a girl who has actually gone through a personal hell. She has seen the suffering and death of her parents. Then later she has seen the starvation, the suffering, and finally death of her sister also. And she is experiencing her own life. So we have here a focus away from the socio-political to the private and the personal. In Arthur Miller, the focus is on the socio-political, but here the focus is on the personal and private. So the two put together give you a complete and comprehensive picture of American life during mid-20th century. That is why generally Williams and Miller, they are mentioned together because they are complementary to each other. Socio-political is complemented by the private and the personal. So, if Miller is showing on the stage a public life, Williams is showing the private hell of the individual. And Blanche Du Bois brings out that hell on the stage, what she has seen, what she has herself gone through, and she becomes representative of every American. So the two levels, the social and the personal, the political and the domestic, both put together, as I said, complementing each other, give you a very comprehensive picture of American society. What was ailing the nation in the mid-20th century, in public life as well as in private life, both are demonstrated by these two great dramatists. Well, the third one I would talk about is Edward Albee. Edward Albee comes at a time when tragedy is turning into farce. The time of the absurd, 1950s. And you have in Europe Camus, Kafka, and others, Beckett then, giving you the picture of the absurd, how life has become tragicomic. Therefore, from the pure tragedy and pure comedy, now you have a mix of tragedy and comedy. It is satirical. It is ironic. That is the outlook of the absurd. In America during the same period, there were writers in fiction giving hilarious comedies, but thoughtful. This was post-World War II period. Joseph Heller, for example, Catch-22, very famous novel, famous movie also. And the comedy has a sting, and a sting which you can't really forget. It keeps bugging you. That's what Heller was doing. And in a slightly different mode, dramatic mode, Albee is doing the same thing, but more serious, more philosophic way of doing it. Heller's was more comic. I had the advantage of meeting and talking to him. He himself was in the American Air Force, and he had seen that farce and gone through all that. But Albee, you see, makes it nationalistic, because the characters in Who is Afraid of Virginia Woolf, you have George and Martha.
Yes.
George Washington, the father of the nation, maker, and Martha, madam, Washington. But here they are made comic figures.
Yes.
And the grand theater of the national movement is made a domestic comedy. So that is the method of the absurd. You put grand things upside down. So those, I say, freedom fighters, heroes of American history, now they represent an America which has become farcical, which has become comic. So the names are retained, but life is reversed, and you see it in its comic mode. It was a very successful comedy in the theater. And Broadway, theaters in New York, they are most famous in America. So all successful playwrights aim at staging their dramas there. So this one too, Edward Albee's, was staged in a Broadway theater and was a very successful comedy. But then he's giving you a message of decline, decadence. Where have we reached? Where is that America of Washington's dream? Now that dream is belied. That dream is blasted. And we have instead a farcical America. So it is this kind of satirical comedy, very stinging, biting sort of satire. And obviously people could see their own image there. And that's why Albee made a mark. Well, the next one I would like to talk about is by Jack Gelber, Gelber, Jack Gelber. And the play is The Connection. This is 1959. Well, Gelber belonged to the avant-garde theater. Avant-garde means anti-conventional. All your revered traditions, conventions, they are attacked, they are ridiculed, they are laughed at. So they create comedy out of this, using the social norms and traditions which are revered by society, but then ridiculing them, showing the hollowness of those conventions and traditions. So this is what Gelber does in The Connection. But then he goes a step further, farther than the absurd, because absurd is basically nihilistic. Absurd is pessimistic.
Yes.
So valueless and sad. It shows you an ending which leaves you depressed. But the connection doesn't do that. Connection carries us a step further. that one can always meet the challenge of the absurd, meet the challenge of depression, and find a way out. And Gelber offers that way out. You see, it is modeled on Waiting for Godot, Thomas Beckett's famous absurd play. There you have those three characters talking out of context, talking not really with each other but at each other. They have their monologues. There is hardly any dialogue. So simultaneously, three monologues are going on. And all the three are waiting for someone who never comes. Godot. Some sort of modern god, but who never comes. You just keep waiting. But here in this American play modeled on Waiting for Godot, the connection does come. Godot does not come, but the connection comes. And finally, it ends on a very optimistic note, where not only the connection, but also the director, writer, and the public audience all come together. That's what connection means. All come on the stage and they have a sort of opera together, dancing, singing. So he tries to pull us out of the absurd into a more positive world. That why die in depression? Why become a victim of the absurd? Why not overcome the absurd? And one way of overcoming is to connect with people, connect with each other, and make a community. So we have come full circle. You remember we started with the contrast.
Yes.
We have come to the connection. So now connect. And in between we had the phase of individualism, extreme sort of, exhausting privacy, and so on. But then when you reach the extreme of something, there is always a reaction to it. And you always jump on to the opposite side. So that is what happened to the American drama. From the extreme, individualism, isolationism, absurdism, you now swing back to connection, swing back to social and communal life, and you find a meaning in connecting with other people. So that is the message that Gelber gives. So he does not stay, although he started as an imitator of the European absurdists, Thomas Becket and company, UNESCO. UNESCO, you remember, he wrote very satirical comedies on the Hitlerian era. One of them is where you have one fine morning, all streets of Paris are jammed with cars. And another time, you have that animal. Humans start turning
This is Eugene Ionesco's The Rhinoceros.
rhinoceros.
Yes, yes.
So rhinoceros, humans turn rhinoceros.
Yes.
First one does, and there are signs of turning.
Yes.
Or you become red-faced, then something grows, horns come, and then finally you turn in a rhinoceros.
Yes.
Actually, it is a satire on the Hitlerian era, that how one man could brutalize the entire nation. And from that one, animal,
Everyone turns
multiplication,
into that. Yes.
finally all streets jammed
Yes.
with rhinoceros.
Yes.
So, very powerful play. He had written another where all streets of Paris jammed with cars and so on. You can't move. He comes out of the house and have a look and goes back. He says, my God, you just can't move out of
Move.
your house because cars will not move.
Yes.
Streets are jammed. Sometimes I think of him. We are reaching at that stage. Anyway, so a very powerful
Absolutely.
play it is. And Hitler had done that, brutalized, which led to World War II. One nation totally brutalized, and everybody turning like an animal, and humans turning upon each other. So that is the role art can play in difficult times.
Absolutely.
And that is what UNESCO and others did, showing the brutality of man to man and making you think, where is your humanity gone? Are you entitled to call yourself humans? You no longer are. You are animals, pure and simple. So that kind of play, I think we can stop there. But then Gelber, as I said, goes a step further and brings us back. So the connection is linked up with the contrast.
Yes.
The story is completed. We started with that division and started with patriotism, then went through realism, expressionism, symbolism, absurdism, and finally connection brings us back to connecting people. And a sort of a neo-patriotism,
Right.
isn't it? Neo-communism, that you connect people, make them one community, one society. So in a way, the American theater completes that story. It brings us back to where we started.
Right.
So I think enough for the day.
Right.
Now you can have
thank you, sir.
questions. Yes.
Thank you, sir. And very interestingly, you have from the previous and today's lecture traced the trajectory from wherein we started talking about the play, the contrast, where there's the element of patriotism. Then we talked about the teeth, skin. The Skin of Our Teeth by Thornton, and we the element of sentimentalism, and then we moved on to talk about The Hairy Ape by Eugene O'Neill, and then we left it at the note that we are going to talk about absurd theatre, which we have talked about today, and then we move on to the connection, which brings us back to connecting with people.
Beyond the absurd, yeah.
Absolutely. So it's a very interesting journey that we have seen, and ending, or say we have left it at a very positive note, that the theatre is no longer sort of very individualistic, or there is, of course, then there is a need to socialize and for people to connect with one another, which is being depicted in the drama.
Well, see, I have always looked at literature from the viewpoint of history. In the first place, literature must be grounded back into history. Otherwise, what is the utility of literature?
Absolutely.
What is the relevance of literature? Relevance is that it reflects life. Shakespeare, I always quote Hamlet, showing mirror up to nature. So that is what the artist is doing, literature is doing. And therefore, we must read history into literature. If you are not making historical interpretation, I think you are missing the real thing, the central message of literature. Secondly, I also view literature as a history by itself. First, relating it to history, the relationship between history and literature, as Aristotle had said long ago, that literature combines both history and philosophy.
Yes.
Because history deals in particular truths and philosophy in general truths, and literature combines both the particular and the general. It gives us particular stories of specific characters and situations. But at the same time, these stories are so told that they become universal. They become everybody's stories.
Absolutely.
Which in history they do not.
They do not, yes.
In philosophy, generalization is abstract, ideas. But here there is concrete generalization.
Absolutely.
Of the particular into the general. So that is the beauty of literature. And Aristotle was right and continues to be right and will continue forever, I think, that literature combines both history and philosophy.
History and philosophy, absolutely, sir. That's absolutely right. Literature as a history, that we can look at that way. And sir, at the beginning of our lecture today, we talked about Arthur Miller's Death of a Salesman, and we also learnt that the author tries to focus on social issues through the individual life of Willy Loman, and we also learned that he's actually reflecting, author is reflecting on the life of the American society through the individual life, and how the business tries to dominate the American society, making the whole process eventually a process of buying and selling and extremely commercial, and there's of course increasing commercialization in society. And is that the impact, or is he trying to show the effect of, say, the Depression era or other factors, this crash of the stock exchange? And
yes, of course, that is the background, but at the same time he is talking of the larger issues involved in the making of a nation. You see, he is worried about the direction in which American society is going. He says, where are we going? Is buying and selling all that life is about? There are much more precious things in life.
absolutely,
Much more valuable things. There are emotions, there are sentiments, there are principles, which should be, governing our life, rather than just the greed for, possessing more and more, and just wasting your life into selling and buying. Willie Loman, at the end of the day, realizes, when he looks back and reviews his entire life, he says, what have I been doing? Just selling myself.
Exactly.
And now I have nothing left to sell. Therefore,
Yes.
exhausted and wasted, empty-handed at the end of the day. So that is the message, a very strong and a very powerful message that Arthur Miller is communicating through this.
Absolutely.
And Willie Loman, he deliberately chooses as a salesman. He becomes a
representative of a whole
and
class.
representative of the largest population of America, so that you can identify with him.
Absolutely.
Yes, I do the same. He's like me. It is only a handful of people who are governing, whose greed is making your life miserable. So that is why it got the focus and it made a stir
Absolutely.
in its own time.
Absolutely, sir. And after that, we talked about Tennessee Williams, a streetcar named Desire. And so with this, we also learned that now the focus is from socio-political to the private and personal. So is it sort of an inner novel moving in the inner, say drama moving in the inner consciousness of the central character?
Yes, exactly. One thing is common, the sense of waste. That is at the socio-political level. Here it is the personal and private level. But the common thing is the feeling of waste. What have I done? And Blanche, you say, is a more tragic character in that sense. And she has seen the whole family going down the drain, wasting life, exhausting life, and she is a tragic character because she has seen it all, and she herself has shared those agonies and has gone through them. So a more serious play than even Death of a Salesman. Of course, there at the end one comes face to face with tragedy, death.
Yes.
But here, right from the beginning, death-like situation where a girl has gone through all the miseries of the entire clan and finally her own. So both sharing the same vision of American life, where is it really leading us to? Both tragic, one on a public platform, the other the inner story of individual life.
Absolutely right, sir. And so learning about that, I would like to move on to talk a bit about Edward Albee's Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. And I would like to ask you, sir, whether the same kind of circumstances or the same kind of factors went into the making of this play, or which the ideas which come out, that where is America heading, and where is, we talked about, where is the American dream that Washington talked about. So when people or the playwright saw that not happening, this is why he came up with this play and in this tradition of the absurd theatre.
You see, literature in the 50s, the absurd, is a step farther from the modernist stance. This is postmodern. Absurd is the postmodern. The modernists, you remember T.S. Eliot, Ezra Pound.
Yes.
Eugene O'Neill, and they were worried about the Western civilization. Where have you come? So they talk of the decline, the wasteland, the decline of the West. By the way, there was a book by a German writer, Spengler. Spengler had written with that title, Decline of the West. And all these literary titles like Wasteland, etc., they are based upon that very book.
Okay.
So they are illustrating what he had theorized. Spengler had theorized, Eliot and company, they are Pound also. They are illustrating
Right.
through examples, showing the mirror and focusing on that very decline of the West.
Absolutely.
How civilization has grown decadent. It has decayed. It has reached the lowest point. But then the postmodernists said, then why be so despondent?
Right.
Why be so tragic? Why not laugh it away? So cheerful nihilism.
Yes, cheerful.
So they adopted that attitude rather than carrying the burden of whole civilization and killing yourself under that burden.
Absolutely.
You can't do a thing about it.
Right.
You can't really rejuvenate and regenerate the decayed society,
Absolutely.
decayed civilization. So what can an individual do? You can only laugh it away. So cheerful nihilism.
Nihilism. Right.
By the way, this phrase comes from John Barth,
Okay.
my favorite writer in American fiction. He wrote two very interesting novels. One was End of the Road,
Right. Yes.
The End of the Road, and the other was The Saltweed Factor. So he shows the end of the road. He says, you reach the dead end. What do you do then? So there are two ways open to you. Kill yourself, commit suicide, or laugh it away. So
Yes,
cheerful nihilism. So laugh it away. So he gave this phrase, cheerful nihilism. Wrote an article, in fact. I have that. Another was literature of exhaustion.
Right. Yes.
He said all the literary forms, from epic to romance to lyric, they stand exhausted. Great writers have written great poems.
Absolutely.
We can't really match them. So what do we do? So his contention was, we can write parodies, satires. So that's why literature of exhaustion.
Exhaustion. Yes.
All forms of literature stand exhausted, and the only option left is now write parodies.
Absolutely.
So that's why literature
of
of exhaustion.
exhaustion. Absolutely. Thanks for explaining that, sir. And just another question I wanted to know from you, where the play Connection by Jack Gelber is also a play of the absurd. Is it part of the theatre of the absurd, or we can call it belonging to another tradition?
No, it is very much a part of the tradition of the absurd. And as I said, he was highly influenced by Thomas Becket, Ionesco,
Yes.
and others who were leaders of the theatre of the absurd at the time in Europe. But at the same time, he goes a step further. He shows the absurd. He admits that life is absurd. But at the same time, he would not prefer to commit suicide. He would also not just laugh it away. He would like to add some meaning to it,
Absolutely.
make it meaningful. And the only way to make it meaningful is to connect yourself with others. Why stand apart? If you are laughing at it, you are standing apart.
Yes.
You don't want to share it. Whatever good, bad, or indifferent is there, you better share with your fellow human beings.
Yes, absolutely.
So that is the message which connection gives. Significantly, he names the central character connection. Therefore, he connects with the rest of the humanity, with fellow beings.
Yes, yes, absolutely, sir. And I don't have any more queries to ask because already everything has been explained so clearly and explicitly. And friends, I'm sure that things are much clearer to you as well, as we have talked about classic American texts and also taking into focus drama in our previous lecture and today. And we have traced the whole trajectory wherein we talked about a play which focuses on patriotism, sentimentalism, realism, expressionism, the absurd, and then again towards now we talk about there's a whole connection about connecting with the people and rejecting that individualism. Friends, this was our lecture on drama, and we have already talked about poetry. So in our next few lectures, we are going to talk about novel, classic American
novels, yes,
novels, and so with this, I would like to thank sir for being here. Thank you so much, sir, for coming and sparing your valuable time. And again, viewers, thanks a lot to you as well. Keep watching us. We really appreciate it. Thank you and have a wonderful day ahead.